We will often, in conversation that we know is going to be inflammatory, metaphorically give them a remote control. And they know if they press this button, they're going to get this reaction. If they say this, I'm going to get angry. If they yell, I'm going to have this reaction. They just poke, poke, press, press, press. Get in the habit of giving them a manual to where if they yell at you or they say something in a ugly way, that you reacting calm, say, well, if you turn to page 60 and you go down to paragraph 3, bullet point F, you're going to see, I don't respond to that volume. I don't react to that tone. Instead of, don't yell at me, which is the button, I say, I don't respond to that volume.
Oh, well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of The Terri Cole Show. I just had a fascinating conversation with my new pal, Jefferson Fisher, which many of you know him online because he teaches all about communication. His new book, it's not that new anymore, but it's been out this year. The Next Conversation, Argue Less and Talk More, is all about how to create boundaries with language, basically. So he's a trial lawyer and has been for years. He's a writer, and he just helps people. He's got this very accessible way of talking about and teaching you how to communicate. And it's funny, I've been following him for a bunch of years, and then I saw his Instagram just blew up. It felt like one day where you were like, oh my God, now he's like the worst kept secret to a degree. But such an interesting conversation. I think that you will actually love this interview. He really gives us some great tips. And I found his life story just fascinating. So I hope you guys love this interview with Jefferson Fisher as much as I loved interviewing him. I'm super pumped to welcome Jefferson Fisher to the Terri Cole Show. Welcome, Jefferson.
Hey, Terri. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So funny. I was telling these guys at the top about how I became familiar with your work. And because you're a lawyer, and listen, like a lot of people, I found you on Instagram, and I felt like I found you, quote unquote. Obviously, I did not, but like I felt like I'm an early adapter, and then suddenly you were everywhere, and everyone knew you. But part of what I loved about what you were sharing is this super accessible way of communicating. And as a therapist, a lot of times I see people who say they're communication experts or good communicators, and I'm like, I really don't think you are. But you, Jefferson Fisher, I really think you are. So I love your work. I'm super pumped that you're here and so happy to see how incredibly celebrated and how you are the worst kept secret now, because now lots of people know your special skills. But I want to get into the book.
That's a huge compliment. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome. I want to get into the book and all the things, but before we do that, I'm always most interested, because I'm a psychotherapist, in like origin stories. Like we all end up doing what we do for a reason. So imagine if you were a Marvel movie character, what would your origin story be that got you to be doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, it was a dark and cold night, and I got dropped into a toxic sludge in a library. No, I am a fifth generation trial attorney. Law has just always been around me. I got picked up from school, and my dad would finish his deposition, or I'd see closing arguments. I saw a lot of the courtroom, probably 100% more than anybody else I went to school with. And I'm the first of 4 kids. And I very much have the early responsibilities, grow up the fastest. I've always been the old soul. And, the dad, the responsible one of my friend group. And it just became a place for me of how I would communicate with others. How do you persuade? How do you talk? How do you get other people to your side? And then when I became a trial attorney, that just became to get ratcheted up in how you communicate, because you're not just talking to a witness, you're talking in front of 12 people, you're talking in front of a judge, you're having to think of what the opposing attorney is going to do with this information. So a lot of different dynamics in there, and the communication and to me is a gift that my parents prayed for, and they've always prayed for wisdom over my life. If I had my Marvel origin story, it would probably be that, but the toxic sludge also sounds pretty cool too.
I like it. So in your ability to, being a fifth generation trial attorney, in your ability to communicate succinctly, right? Because part of my attraction to your work is I'm always like impressed with people who communicate precisely, right? Because it's so easy to not. And there's a lot of psychological reasons why people don't communicate precisely. Like it's
Right.
scary. They're blocking intimacy. There's lots of
Yeah.
different stuff. But do you find, because you sort of come from this long line of people, did that translate into your home life with effective communication or direct communication? Like, did your parents do it directly? Did your extended family? Or is it really more unique to you?
I took a little bit of both. So my dad is very diplomatic. If anybody's gone to law school or familiar with it, then you know of the Socratic method of teaching, meaning he would teach in the form of questions. And so it was, if there was a big moment of a lesson to be learned, he generally would not say, this is what you want to do. He would say, so how is that going for you? And do you find that this is what's, leading to a better result for you? Like he would start to ask questions to point me to me saying out the answer. And that was a very productive way of teaching me to think of problems and to think of conflict. And my dad is not someone who's easily angered at all. And not to say he's not stern. He's very stern. He can be very direct. Certainly never afraid to say what he wants to say. My mother, is very kind. And she was the type that I would come to her with something. Maybe somebody had said something at school, and she'd say, well, were you kind? And I'd say, but Mama, you don't understand. They did this one, they did X, Y, and Z. And she'd say, well, I still think you should be kind. This mentality of these forces combined of how they poured a lot of me, because it was just me by myself till I was 4, 5, until my sister was born. And so I was an only child of I got them at a very, it's my parents' first time being parents. And so a lot of their lessons that they're instilling in me. And being direct is something that probably I took a lot from my parents, and a lot that is just my personality. But I like to attribute a lot of it to my parents.
I love what you said about your father's way of teaching.
Yeah.
It requires someone to be deeply secure, I think, as a human being, to teach that way. So asking expansive questions, like it sounds like your dad really got the assignment of being a father, which is critical thinking, deductive reasoning, like it's not being so afraid that your kid's going to make a mistake that you're like telling them the answer and gripping and allowing you to get there. Not only, and I'm telling you what you already know, but not only did it teach you how to problem solve, but the confidence that comes from you figuring it out instead of being told is such a profound gift from a parent to a child.
Very much so. I'd agree. When something would happen, he'd ask me a lot. He'd say, what did you learn? And that made me focus on what did I really take away. And I would be upset about something. I'm a teenager, of course. There's always something to be mad about or complain about. And he would always say, because we're down here in Texas, he'd say, you really want to make that your Alamo? Meaning, is this really going to be the hill that you want to die on?
Right.
And every time I'd think about that question, I'd say, no, I guess not. What he introduced me to is this, Terry, of you have in the conversation, me, you communicating, the words we say. Then there's a exterior level to the conversation of detachment, of watching it happen, of seeing the conversation rather just being in it. It's like working on your business instead of in your business. It was kind of that mentality of, he would teach me, of course, I'd have let's say, an argument with Mom, and I'm upset at my mom. Of course, I'd talk to Dad, and he would say, son, the issue is rarely the issue. And that is like, I cemented it into my brain.
Yep.
Of you saying, no, you're only hearing this issue. What you're not seeing is this issue. It's not that you did X, Y, and Z. It's because you said this 2 hours ago that she's thinking about right now. Like that opened my eyes to like somebody drawing the curtain behind the matrix for me of how dynamics happen day to day.
It's so interesting. Two things I want to say about that. One is from a therapeutic point of view, I would say that he is teaching you to think and function in the truth that there's always a parallel process going on. And therapeutically, I will always say to my clients, it's never just what it looks like, which is basically you saying it's never just being in the conversation, right? There's always more elements to it. And when you can, Deepak Chopra years ago would talk about, one of the highest levels of evolution personally is becoming the observer of ourselves, of our reactions, of our reality, of how we're interacting, of our dynamics. And I remember this was, literally, I swear to God, I think it was 30 years ago, but my husband and I were at it. Well, no, couldn't be 30, 25 maybe. But we were at like a week-long meditation thing. And I remember thinking about how, at that point in my life, how little I was able to sort of not be like the hot-headed, like, you know what I mean? To not be reactive. And how that was something therapeutically and in my own life, like I worked towards becoming responsive and not reactive, which I know in your work you talk quite a bit about. But I love the idea of him teaching you to think outside the box and how much that influences what happens. So I want to ask you about this book now, right? So the next, you guys, many of you probably already have this book. You've already heard of this book. And if you haven't, you must go get it immediately. It's called The Next Conversation, Argue Less, Talk More. Those of you who are on YouTube could see it's a beautiful cover. That's what it looks like. So why this book? Like, why did you feel compelled to write this book?
People ask for it. I never thought in a million years I had anything to share in a book. I never thought ever I'd write a book. I went to law school. I thought I'd just do law things. And then there it goes, being in the family. And it wasn't until the videos where people would say, you need to write a book. Please write a book. Please write a book. And I think, well, I guess I got to write a book. And so I would Google, how do you write a book? I called it The Next Conversation, Terry, because people go to my social media, which is how this whole thing started, and me talking to myself in the car. I never will shy away from that beginning and what I still do. Because they don't watch to know how to handle the last conversation. They watch to know how to handle the next conversation. And if I can just teach them a phrase, a way to think, a way to structure their sentences, their words, just a little bit better, then maybe, just maybe, there's a 1% chance that I'm going to make the conversation go better than it would have had they not had it. And what I teach in this book is my framework. It's not just the tips of my videos. It's really a framework to where I would love for people to start making their own videos. Just have a bunch of car videos everywhere. I think that would be great.
I love it. All right, what I was going to say before, so that makes sense. It's like there was a need, there was a bunch of asks, and you were like, okay, I can fulfill this. What I was thinking before, you had mentioned that your father was not quick to anger. And that I always find that fascinating with men in this society and men of your dad's age, because I don't know how old you are, but I imagine your dad has to be, how old are you?
I'll be 37 this year.
So your dad's in his 50s or 60s?
I think he just turned 60.
Okay. So
he was born in 63.
Okay. So, and I was born in 64.
Okay.
So how you doing? I'm the same age as your dad. In the meantime, but him having, what I would call emotional self-control or emotional regulation is, again, such a rare gift to hand down. And I don't know how that was for you, but you energetically, you always strike me through the lens of watching you on Instagram as that, like an unflappable in some way, or like there's a calmness. And part of your teaching is about sort of taking a pause. You know, we're trying not to react, right? Not letting people push our buttons. So for you, how is that? Is that something you had to work on, your emotional self-regulation, or is it just your nature?
It's my nature. I find that in a world that, especially for let's say on the more masculine side, there's a temptation I find for men to follow this type of overly ego, over aggressive, I have to dominate, win, 10x my life. This whole just let me be such a guy, whatever that is. All right. I find that that's much more to the extreme. I think majority of people are hungry for calm energy. That they will see that the power is not in the zinger from the talking heads on your favorite news channel. That the power is not having this quick clap back that's going to sound cool for a second. The power is having a calm energy that says, whatever you say to me does not threaten me. And the more you can harness that and get to a place where you're just in the pocket all the time, you're going to have a much better life.
Love it. Because when you think about the empowerment that comes from not being super activatable, right? When we're activatable, online and, in these, out here in these internet streets, people love to talk about being triggerable and whatever. As a therapist, I don't like to use the word triggered very much because in my world, it really means trauma. And a lot of times when we're activated, we're not necessarily talking about trauma, but the more we have our buttons visible, right? The more buttons there are that are visible for people to slam on, it gives people so much control over us. Yeah. And so much of what your work is maintaining control over ourselves. And really, what I was thinking before you came on was about how much your work is also really about boundaries.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah, it is.
Right? You're talking about language, but so much of the time you're telling people what the limit is. You are putting up a boundary of no, that doesn't work for me, basically.
Yeah. And no, that's exactly right. I like to compare it to a remote control in a manual. So instead of, like you said, we will often in conversation that we know is going to be inflammatory, just metaphorically give them a remote control. And they know if they press this button, they're going to get this reaction. If they say this, I'm going to get angry. If they yell, I'm going to have this reaction. They just poke, press.
Yeah.
But if what I like to teach, and I believe in, is that you get in the habit of giving them a manual to where if they yell at you or they say something in a ugly way, that you reacting calm say, well, if you turn to page 60 and you go down to paragraph 3, bullet point F, you're going to see, I don't respond to that volume. I don't react to that tone. That's the kind of thing that instead of don't yell at me, which is the button, I say, I don't respond to that volume. Or, that's below my standard of a response. Things like that, those are boundaries. Just like you said, Terri, those are boundaries. I'm putting a limit of this. If you want to communicate with me, then here are the parameters by which we will operate. It's just your operator's manual. That's all it is.
I love it. I say with boundaries, it's your own personal rules of engagement that allow other people to know what's okay with you and what's not okay with you, which is basically exactly what you're saying. So for people who struggle, right? For people who struggle with being direct, what are your thoughts about speaking directly? Because there's a lot of, especially with women, I have to say, I still think this is true, that there's this sense of, just like you were saying about your mom, she's prioritizing the crap out of kindness. Even when someone was unkind to you, she wanted to make sure that you didn't act ugly in some way before she even heard the facts of how ugly they were.
Correct. Exactly, yeah.
But what are your thoughts about speaking directly?
I want people to know that those who speak directly, it's a very attractive quality, period. In relationships, you see this a lot. Somebody who can tell you what they think, even when it might work, does something that's not good news for you, you at least appreciate it rather than just ghosting or rather than just beating around the bush. When somebody's direct with you, or let's say it's a great quality. Let's say you get done with dinner and you're walking and you say, I really like your laugh. Or I like this about you. I mean, that is direct as can be. Or or if something's going wrong, you say, I need to tell you, I'm not a fan of X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. There is just so much relief when the clarity enters into the fray of, oh, wonderful. It's like all the static is gone. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I can communicate clearly with this person. There's no, we have a clear signal to talk to one another. And people that struggle with it, I think some of it is they fear the sound of their own voice, which is as you would certainly know more than me, probably stems from something long before that conversation ever came up. Mm-hmm. It's just the sound of their own voice. It's going to be unfamiliar to them because they knew it at one point in time, and because of life, they've lost it and they've forgotten it. I find that to be a major factor. And the other big factor as to why people are afraid of directness is because they're afraid to disappoint people. Mm-hmm. They feel like they have to people please. And what you're doing is deciding to feel people's feelings for them, as if going through your own isn't enough.
Yeah, dude.
And so that can create problems over time, where you just feel like you let me be in the background is usually kind of their mantra. I'm good in the background. I'm good. Thank you. I'm fine here. And then they resent it when the world goes by.
So great. I want to say something about what you said originally about someone being direct and how it just like instantly clears the air, because what uncertainty puts into the air is like tension when you're not sure and you're like, did they like it? Did they not? I don't know. If you look at it from, again, a psychological point of view, people who are direct are emotionally trustworthy.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to guess. If you don't like it, you say it. If you do like it, you say it. And there's something about how the nervous system, as you said, sort of just gets to relax. I wrote about this in one of my books about, I have a friend and I was doing something in Guatemala or wherever. Yeah. And I was like, hey man, you want to do this yoga thing or whatever? And she was like, oh yeah, no, I hate hot weather and I don't want to go to Guatemala. Like immediately her response was, ugh, like the last thing I'd want to do. And she's funny.
Yeah.
I have a good relationship with her. She's someone who I trust because she's never going to bullshit me. She's never like, I hope you're not mad that I don't like hot weather. Like, she gets it. If it's not a vacation you want to take with me, don't. Like, I wouldn't want her to, right? But all of and really what we're talking about when we can't be this way, we can't be honest because we're afraid of what the other person, like you said, disappointing other people. We're really talking about codependency, like emotional codependency, where I'm too attached to your feelings, what I think are your feelings, my projection of your feelings. Because like, do I even, okay, no, I really don't, but I'm just guessing, you know?
No, I think that's exactly right. I get it because I'm certainly one of them where I would consider myself, what do they call it? Like an empath, I guess. I feel I'm very sensitive to other people's feelings. Mm-hmm. My son has gotten that. He's 7. He's very much the same. So I have 2 kids, a boy who's 7, a daughter who's 5. And my son is very much me. He will, if we give him something, we better have also something for his sister, because he will feel that that's not fair for her. I mean, he's very, very sensitive to that. Now, my daughter could care less about anybody's feelings. I mean, she could care less about your feelings, truly. She does no empathy whatsoever. And he took all of it from her. And I love it. I really do. I love it. And it's such a fun dynamic to watch. But that's the tendency, is you wear other people's feelings for them. And there's a good side, there's a good way to use that and a bad way to use it. I find the bad way of using that is using it as an excuse to not be direct with that person. There's just such an attractive quality around people that are direct. I also have friends that I was like, hey man, you want to go here? And he's like, nah, absolutely not. Like, that is just, thank you. Okay, great. You always, the people who, there's something about that some people say, oh, they're kind of the jerk. They're a little too blunt. I value those people.
Same.
Because they will tell you exactly what's what to them. And if you're not in their circle, who cares? I was the type that I wanted everybody to like me. I wanted to have a bunch of friends. Now that I'm getting older, I just value very few friendships. I just give me my tight group of 2 to 3, or 1, and I'm good. And that's what I typically see. The people who are direct are the ones that are value. And
more that there's a certain amount of confidence too, like self-confidence and self-consideration. If you can be direct, because you are not overly prioritizing the other person above yourself, right? And I always say, we can be thoughtful, right? We can still be compassionate without being run over. Part of what you talk about in the book is about how real communication, you make this distinction between identifying the argument as opposed to identifying the struggle. So can you talk a little bit about that, how people can do that? Yeah.
What I say is an argument is a window into another person's struggle. Meaning we are so quick, myself included, we're so quick to say, I just don't understand how they can do X, Y, and Z, or how they can believe this, or they can vote for this. I just don't understand. And they say that with zero work being done of actually trying to understand where this person is coming from. What is the struggle? Every little argument comes from someone's struggle from the other side. Mine too. And if you can just have the patience and discipline to, instead of reacting with, how dare you? How could you? I just don't believe you. You know what? I don't even get how you could possibly, instead of that, which is just garbage, instead of that, have the mindset of asking yourself, where is this coming from? I wonder where this is coming from. And some would say just that means be curious. I don't find that nearly as practical. It's just asking a question of yourself, like we talked about, bring it full circle. It's the matrix of where is this coming from? If somebody is yelling at you, it stems from something that's greater than what you are right now. It's their need for control. Maybe it's a need for they are on 8% of their battery and they've had a very long day, and you are their safe space. So they feel like they can release all their emotion rather than you taking it all personal. So it's the question of where is this coming from?
It sort of puts people in the position, though, and I think that, hopefully, I feel like this is perfect timing. This year is a perfect time for this book to come out that encourages us, invites us to do something different, because there is such a lack of that, of being curious about where someone else, because the polarization has gotten so divisive that it's like this automatic, like us and them thing. And, we know it's not going to bring us to a good place. And it's like the whole thing with needing to learn to communicate and try to understand. Because whether we like it or not, we're like, oh, there's only one world. Like, there's only one earth. Like, we're all kind of in it together,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's finding a way to see past what is being said and to reach into what is being felt. That's true connection, when you can have that element of understanding in both the acknowledgement. And I can connect with you and still be mad at you. I can connect with you and still be upset by what's happening or disappointed. Connection does not mean it's all happy. Connection doesn't mean it's a Hallmark card and we have to walk away shaking hands and smiles on our face. That's not what that means. I mean, I know we're bringing up my parents a lot. I just love to talk about them. But my dad would, again, when I would come up with something and I disagreed with his call, you know, my curfew is what it is. No, you're not going to go to that friend's house, whatever it was. He would say, well, you don't got to like it. You just need to understand it. Like, that was his way right there. He'd say, well, you don't got to like it. You just need to understand it.
Fact. You're like,
And as a kid, you know, I hated it. But now I see so much of what he was doing. It was giving me the freedom of, hey, you don't got to like it. That's
you
fine.
can be mad. Yep.
You can be mad.
But parenting in that way, again, there's such a depth of security because it's so easy. You know, when you're parenting, it's so easy to take things personally. Kids go through stuff in their teen years, and like,
Yeah.
for me, holding on to, because I married a widower, so I basically inherited 3 teenage sons 27 years ago. So they were like young teens and acting out and so bad. I mean, they're regular citizens and all dads today. Everyone's fine. But, you know, it was just like a rough 10 years, you know?
Of course.
And
yeah, I can see that.
I remember my mother being like, you know, I would call her on Sundays and be like, oh my God, like, this is not what I signed on for. And she was like, yeah, it is. This is exactly what you signed on for. And she was like, Tara, this being a parent means always being the grown-up.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot take any of this behavior personally. So in a way, your dad, instead of him being like, I need you to like, he was like, I don't care if you don't like it, because I'm the grown-up and you still are not going to that party or whatever.
Exactly.
It is, right?
Yeah. He was never the type of, you know, who do you think you're talking to? Or you know, I need to remind you who's boss. It was never, it was never that personality from him. It was always well, that's fine. You don't gotta like it. You can disagree with it. That's fine.
Enjoy.
I mean, and exactly. It's like, it's not changing. You can be mad at it. And so that's just an example of connection right there. I mean, he was connecting with me, saying, you don't have to agree with it. So, I mean, even in everyday conversation, you put a practical point on it. Even when you start with somebody and saying, look, you don't need to agree with anything I'm about to say, and then you say it, they're going to be more receptive than them always feeling like they have to be on the front. Or if they disagree and you say, it's okay, you can disagree with me. I mean, that's just, it's freeing in many ways to them. And that's what it is.
And why stonewalling and the silent treatment is so damaging, because exactly what you're saying, connecting means we're staying in conversation, even if it's a rough conversation. And withdrawing in anger, there's just nowhere to go. There's no way to resolve when someone is dominating you with their silence, you know?
Yeah, stonewalling it's corrosive to any relationship. It's just, it might feel like it worked a little bit when you're in the early stages of dating, you know? That's just, I'm not going to respond to so-and-so's text.
Okay.
You just leave them on red for hours to twist in the wind, because at that point it's just punitive. You want it to hurt.
Yeah.
That's why you're doing it. You want it to hurt. It's a punishment.
Yeah.
Instead of just a simple, I need some time with this, I'll get back with you later this evening. Simple as that. Just communicate. Be direct. It is easy as that. Rather than at the smallest hint of frustration, you throw up your hands. That I will show you that to be a person who has very low emotional intelligence, who has not grown in emotional maturity yet to handle that kind of stuff.
No doubt. Okay, so I asked this question to all my guests because we're coming to the end of our time, because I'm still fully obsessed with boundaries. So personally, what has been your most challenging boundary struggle, and how have you overcome it if you have?
Oh, the first thing that's coming to mind right now is what I'm living in right now, Terry, and that's the saying no to things. There's a lot of requests, a lot of conversations, a lot of everything that I get asked to do. And how do I say yes to things, and how do I say no to things? And I like to see it as, it's very elementary, but I like to see it as a kind of as a seesaw. Like when my family is my priority as a husband, as a dad. And knowing that when I say yes to something, I'm saying no to something else. And so I try to make sure that as much as I can, I keep the levels flat as much as I can. Now, there's going to be give, but that to me is being able to put a boundary around the time for my kids and my family. And if I can, I try to bring them places. And that means I say no to something, even though it might be lucrative, might be a great opportunity, but it doesn't align with my values.
Yeah.
Then the answer is no. And as long as my values are in place, it makes my decisions easier to make.
I love it. All right, you guys, the book is The Next Conversation, Argue Less, Talk More by Jefferson Fisher. So tell us, Jefferson, where can everybody find you?
Oh, thank you. They can find me on any social media at Jefferson Fisher. And you can find me at jeffersonfisher.com, and you can get the book wherever you like to buy books. It'll probably be there.
Well, I love it, and I super appreciate you spending time with us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, my goodness. It's my honor. Thanks, Terri.